Hello everyone and welcome back to another video on the channel. Today we're reviewing the latest film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe called Thunderbolts. This film is directed by Jake Schreier, starring Florence, Pugh, Sebastian Stan, Louis-Dreyfus, Pullman, David Harbour, Wyatt Russell, Hannah John-Kamen, and Olga Kurylenko. Now before we get into the film itself, let's take a retrospective look at Comic-Con 2022 when Marvel first announced Phase 5 of the MCU with a slate of 12 projects, 6 movies, and 6 shows. We're capping off 2 trilogies with the new Ant-Man film and Guardians of the Galaxy. Between Loki and Quantumania, we're setting up the next big bad with Kang. Nick Fury is finally getting a show. Sam Wilson is finally getting his Captain America film. And I mean, come on, Mahershala Ali as Blade, fantastic. But the 2 projects, for me at least, that's had the least appeal were Agatha All Along and Thunderbolts. But what made Thunderbolts somewhat alluring was the fact that it would be the film that ends off Phase 5. At its peak, the MCU would end off with a strong team-up film with the Avengers movies, but after Endgame, the lack of a core team of heroes had been very much felt, which added to many fans feeling like the MCU had lost its sense of direction. And here we are, 3 years after its announcement, with me having a wildly different mindset on the MCU as a whole from what I had back in 2022 when this film was announced. Phase 5 started off with 2 of the lowest rated and most disappointing projects in the entirety of the MCU with Quantumania and Secret Invasion, one of the flagship films inside of the slate with the Marvels, which I actually quite enjoyed, sadly ended up bombing in the box office. 2 projects have yet to be released, with one probably never seeing the light of day between Iron Heart, which we will get eventually, and Blade, which I don't think we'll ever get. Daredevil Born Again went through development hell, slashing its 18-episode run to only 9, and oddly enough, 2 of the highlights for this phase of the MCU have ended up being those 2 little projects that many of us brushed off to the side. Agatha All Along, which I thought was phenomenal, and now Thunderbolts. This film just does all the things that it needed to get right, bringing us a culmination of storylines and characters that feel satisfying, consequential to the universe, and just plain fun. So of course I'll be getting into spoilers for Thunderbolts because there is a lot to get into with this film, so if you haven't had a chance to watch it just yet, or were undecided in jumping back into the MCU at this point, I'll say that it is very much worth the watch, so go to the theater, watch the film, and let's get into it. And if you end up enjoying this video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel to see more reviews just like this. I'll have weekly reviews out for The Last of Us, along with movie reviews like Sinners that I talked about just last week, which was absolutely phenomenal. Now onto the movie. So what is this film about? Well, we follow our cast of mercenaries who all work separately for Valentina to complete Black Ops missions surrounding the Sentry program. However, her illegal experimentations have caught the attention of the US government, leading her to scramble to hide all the evidence of her failed program, and that includes these mercenaries that know a little bit too much about her dark deeds. All of our anti-heroes are tasked to take each other out in this highly secure vault. YELENA is going after Ghost, Ghost is going after Taskmaster, Taskmaster is going after US Agent, and of course US Agent is going after YELENA, leading to our team unintentionally being assembled. Their discovery of a strange, unstable man named Bob leads us through our story for the rest of the runtime. The core ensemble of this film is definitely the best part of this movie for me. Marvel has always done a great job at bringing together sets of characters from different projects to create unlikely teams of heroes. And in the case of the Thunderbolts team, this team is mostly made up of characters that we haven't really grown to like or care about whatsoever, which makes it even more impressive that this team works as well as they do. YELENA has had the most screen time thus far, and it very much helps that Florence Pugh is the actress portraying this character. She always gives 110% effort in every single film that she's in, and this is of course no exception. The film's themes of loneliness and depression are most clear in this character, as she has no real drive or purpose in her life other than doing terrible things for a living, going home to an empty apartment, drinking alone, and starting the cycle all over again. Her interactions with her father, played by David Harbour, are all great, making this a true sequel to 2021's Black Widow, and honestly, that's a film that I never revisited, and this film makes me really want to go back and see where these characters all started. Harbour's ambition to be a hero like Natasha and his support in wanting the same for YELENA is the heart of this film, as he's truly the only one who believes that this team of misfits can be something more, even if his ambitions come across as incredibly silly throughout the runtime. Wyatt Russell's John Walker has somehow become one of my favorite characters to follow in the MCU, as someone I still don't necessarily like, but someone whose story is always engaging. His brashness, which led him to being ousted in his position of Captain America, is also the reason why he's so fun to watch on screen. He's an asshole 90% of the time, but you can see that despite all the bad things that he's done, his intentions are mostly good.
God only knows the blood on your hands.
Pretty ludicrous coming from the dime store Captain America.
I'll have you know I was actually the official Captain America, so.
Yeah, for like 2 seconds.
There is a great moment inside of this film, honestly my favorite moment with this character inside of this movie, where Bucky mentions that his wife had left him and taking his kid along with her. That's honestly hits his character very hard, and there's a silent look between YELENA and him in this moment that hits so much harder than any of the void-driven memories that we see of his past. I think that's Wyatt Russell is phenomenal in this moment, along with Florence Pugh, and that look just says so much more than you'd think on the page. Sebastian Stan is always great as Bucky Barnes, who we see pick up exactly where his character left off in Captain America: Brave New World. Seeing him try to take on the role as a congressman added a lot of great humor inside of this film. Honestly, seeing our heroes in mundane situations is always fun to see, and I like his role outside of the Thunderbolts mercenary team as he investigates Val separately until his story eventually collides with the others. Hannah John-Kamen returns as Ghost from Ant-Man and the Wasp, and I really enjoyed her presence here. Her abilities is easily the best part of her character, as she's honestly not given too much to do outside of just being cool inside of the action sequences, but her chemistry bouncing off of the rest of the team is solid, though, making her fit right into the group. I do wish, however, that she had a moments with her and Bob like YELENA had, like Walker had, just to see her past trauma a little bit more. We don't really learn too much about what she's been up to since the last time we saw her, which was like 7 years ago at this point, so that was a little bit of a bummer for me. She was, however, the only one to succeed in her task in killing her target in Taskmaster, who is in this film for a solid 2 minutes. Marvel really botched this character in Black Widow and really had no intentions whatsoever to redeem that adaptation, which is also unfortunate, albeit a little bit funny. But beyond our main cast of anti-heroes, I also really enjoyed the supporting cast in this film. Geraldine Viswanathan is always charming in whatever she's in, and her assistant role to Val was great. The subtle looks that she gives are perfect when reacting to the very volatile nature of Val's character, which added another layer of fun to this film. If she keeps on popping up into random small roles like Darcy did in WandaVision, I'd be very happy. Wendell Pierce is another supporting character inside of this film as the congressman trying to impeach Val, and he also stood out to me, which is surprising as his role is not all that substantial. Just goes to show how well written even these smaller roles are within this movie that make it feel a little bit more lived in and more important than some other smaller roles in Brave New World, for example. Also, he's going to be Perry White in Superman, so this feels like a nice little precursor to seeing him again later in this summer. But the real surprise standout for me inside of this film is Julie Louis-Dreyfus as Valentina Allegra de Fontaine. This is her 4th appearance in the MCU so far and has been a character that I honestly wasn't really looking forward to. All her other appearances have felt incredibly out of place inside of their respective films or shows. Her introduction in The Falcon and the Winter Soldier felt as if they were trying a bit too hard to set her up as a super important character, which continued in Black Widow as she recruited YELENA. Her role in Black Panther Wakanda Forever felt incredibly out of place. It felt like the one thing the studio forced Ryan Coogler to include inside of that film, and her performance just didn't fit that story's tone whatsoever. So I was honestly very prepared to have no real opinion on this character within this story, but to my surprise, her ability to spin every single situation she finds herself in to her benefit was so incredibly fun to watch. From her interactions with Pierce inside of the court and party sequences to her interactions with Viswanathan throughout the entire runtime of the film, she was a constant presence within this film that added both stakes and comedy. She was someone I simultaneously wanted our heroes to take out, but also someone I was actively rooting for as she was trying to get away with whatever evil schemes she was up to, and the way that she played the Thunderbolts at the very end of the film to create a new team of Avengers was absolutely incredible, but I'll get back to that in a bit. I also really dug the film's direction from Jake Schreier of Beef fame, which if you haven't seen that show, please go watch it, it's great, but I love that Schreier kept this story contained as almost a bottle episode of a film. The vault sequence was a challenge for our characters in every single way. Once they realized that Val was behind it all, it easily could have cut to them outside of the vault walking back and being picked up by Red Guardian, but Schreier, along with the writers of the film, gave them obstacle after obstacle for them to encounter that's never made this journey easy for them. Of course, the vault had to be an incinerator, so they had to find some way to get out of it before they all burned to death. Of course, the elevator doesn't work, so they had to find some other way to shimmy their way up the shaft. Of course, the military is going to be waiting for them at the top of the mountain, so they have to work together to get out of it. And of course, the lights don't turn off when they try to blind the soldiers, which adds more distrust within the group. Even when Bob thinks he's about to sacrifice himself to allow the others to escape, and we get his first flight, which was accompanied by an absolutely incredible score from Son Lux, by the way, which was, the score in this film is incredible, but his fall from the sky flips the truck over, leaving our team with no vehicle. Then when the Red Guardian shows up, of course they're being pursued by the soldiers and Bucky, who at this point is not on their side, and so of course he arrests them as well. They just never catch a break throughout this entire story, and it's a great mechanism to force them to work together and bond as they're always in way over their heads. This of course leads me to the villain of the story in Bob, played by Louis Pullman. His awkward introduction inside of the vault led to a lot of great comedy as he is constantly in the background of our team fighting fighting amongst each other. YELENA's bond with him around loneliness and the void within these characters was one of the stronger relationships within the film, and his plan to shimmy up the elevator shaft and his near sneeze that would have killed them all was incredibly funny. A lot of great stuff with this character for the first half of the film. But once he realizes the potential of his abilities and is pushed to becoming the Sentry by Val, his unreliable mental state ties directly back to the film's themes. I will say that his turn to go against the team he was willing to sacrifice himself for was a bit quick. There was a brief line earlier in the film saying that he has incredibly high highs with delusions of grandeur before incredibly low lows, leading to him blacking out and forgetting what has happened, which does explain a lot of his behavior inside of the third act. Val is desperate to get a win in the eyes of Congress as someone who can prepare the US for any supernatural threats. The Sentry program was meant to develop itself within these test subjects, but Bob was never meant to be the final candidate. So as Val builds up the delusions of grandeur within this character, he quickly forms a god complex that Pullman is able to pull off fairly quickly.
There are bad guys, and there are worse guys, and nothing else. Look at you. So adorable.
But it's Val's kill switch that triggers his turn to becoming the Void, which leads us to our final act. This character was an already impossible threat for our team after Sentry wiped the floor with them in one of the best scenes inside of the movie. Honestly, leaves a lot of potential and excitement to see what this character is able to do inside of Avengers movies. I cannot wait to see this character come back in a larger presence, but him looming above New York inside of this film as the Void, as he's turning all the people of New York into shadows, was absolutely a terrifying visual. Although I did get a good laugh when the little girl was turned into a shadow right in front of Red Guardian, but besides that, the visuals are haunting within this movie. There are several uses of shadows before this point in Andrew Draw's Palermo's cinematography that is only exemplified by the abilities the Void possesses inside of this final act, leading to some of the most creative and thematically relevant visuals within the entirety of the MCU. This is the second MCU film in a row where the main character has to talk down the villain rather than ending the film with a large fight sequence, but I think it works much better here than it did in Brave New World. The trippy visuals inside the Void's mind was unique, and seeing the darkness take over Bob as he is killing a part of himself was impactful. And like Inside Out 2, which I've heard a lot of critics mention in their reviews, YELENA is able to hug him along with the rest of our characters to bring him out of his void states, making the climax of the film more emotional and character driven than most blockbuster action films would dare to do. And although I would agree that in the wake of Brave New World, it is refreshing to see an MCU movie with something actually real to say, I don't think that this movie is as profound as some others are making it out to be. The Inside Out films have much better representations of anxiety and depression, making this film look like it's trying a bit too hard to capture what those films did seemingly effortlessly. And like the team we have assembled here in and of itself, the film lacks subtlety entirely. It is very in your face about our character's inner darkness being represented as a literal void, and its themes are told to you fairly early on through voiceover or through dialogue sequences between Bob and YELENA, which left me feeling a bit underwhelmed by the film's thematic impact that the initial reviews raved about. I think the movie is very solid with great performances, and it accomplishes so much more than I was expecting based on the original announcement, but based on the rave reviews, it hit a little bit below my expectations, leading me to think the movie is really good. It's really, really good, but it falls just short of being great. What is great, however, is the way this movie fits into the larger MCU puzzle with creating the new Avengers, which is the reason behind the asterisk in the title. I love that little detail and the implications this has on Avengers Doomsday, which we know these characters play a significant role in. The closing title sequence shows a lot of news articles as the world reacts to the new government-funded team of Avengers, a task that Ross tried to do with Sam Wilson in Brave New World, but one that Cap refused to follow through with. The post-credits scene teases a potential beef between this set of new Avengers alongside whatever team Sam Wilson is able to bring together. There is a quick moment of regret in Bucky's reaction to Sam putting a trademark on the Avengers name, which gets me really excited to see what their dynamic will be in Avengers Doomsday. But it also further highlights a potential theme this upcoming Avengers film may have, with Sam along with the new Avengers all feeling like they have too much to live up to. Are they really the ones that will protect the world from the next Avengers level threats? That question remains to be answered, but it does get me excited for its potential next year. The post-credit scene also teases that the Fantastic Four are flying in on some extra-dimensional ship, further boosting the theory that their world will most likely get destroyed by Galactus, leading them to flee to our world. Both the new Avengers reveal and the Fantastic Four reveal got massive cheers in the audience I watched this film with tonight, which is very much warranted.
Please welcome the Fantastic Four.
But those are just going to be my thoughts on Thunderbolts or the new Avengers, whichever title you want to go with. I'm very curious to hear your thoughts in the comment section down below. Was this the shot in the arm the MCU needed? Do you have hope for the future, or are you still skeptical over whether or not they'll pull off Doomsday and Secret Wars with this cast of characters leading the next team of Avengers? And of course, if you did enjoy this review, make sure you leave a like and subscribe to the channel to see more reviews just like this one. I believe Friendship is releasing next week, so keep an eye out for that review here on the channel. But thanks everyone for watching, and I hope to see you all in my next one.